We're here. Welcome to another Dragon Plus live stream. I am your host, Bart Caro. With me, as always, every other week, Jeremy Crawford, the lead rules designer of Dungeons and Dragons, and of course, the lead designer of the Player's Handbook.
And also today, I am the happy birthday unicorn.
Yes.
Because everyone, it is this man's birthday.
Oh, I'm getting up there. I liked turning 30, but now, and then 40, it was like, ooh, boy. And then now I've gone even further around the sun. It's like, oh my God.
Are you willing to say on air what year you've reached, or is this going to be a D&D secret? That
No.
Maybe we'll have to research to find out.
I was trying to give clues. The president, when I was born, was, it was still, looks like Richard Nixon.
All right, all right.
And the song of the year was, oh man, the number one song was The Way We Were by Barbra Streisand.
All right.
So
everyone Google it, you're going to figure out.
Yes.
Bart's birthday year.
Thai SQL, keep going. It's yes. No, yes. It is my birthday, but I'm glad to be spending it with all of you and with yourself as well on the live stream.
Yeah, I feel honored that you came into work today.
Oh, it's a Wednesday birthday. It's like a crummy day to have it. Like if it's a Thursday or Friday, it's like, oh, no way. But I'm taking Friday off.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go. And I'm glad you came in because it meant we all got donuts.
Yes, thanks to Shelley. She
Yes.
brought in some. I did not expect her to do that, so I was pleased myself. I was going to ask, best birthday present you ever got as a kid?
Oh my gosh.
Were there ever some key birthday moments that you had present-wise?
So actually, the present I remember most is not from a birthday. It's from we have some people. Birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bart. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all. And I am turning one cat. So
Cats have 9 lives. That's
well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. You're all live, so be careful.
All right, now we awkwardly leave.
Silverware napkins if you want.
And we were just complimenting the donuts that you were bringing in.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye, everybody, guys.
Get out! You've interrupted the stream.
boy.
That was nice. That was very nice. Oh,
You deserve it.
I appreciate that. Yes. Now the hat's coming off because it's killing me already.
See, I'm going to keep it on. I'm going to see how long I can stay being the birthday unicorn through this stream.
There's definitely not a Kate Welch trying to crawl discreetly under the camera.
Yeah, we are distracted by.
No, there's no one here.
So luckily that did not stick.
Yeah. Also, luckily, somebody is going to be running Welch's Game Juice tomorrow.
Oh no, Kate. Oh no.
And here I was innocently thinking she left behind like an
Yes.
important piece of paperwork or a pen or something.
Yep.
No, that's true. Kate Welch will be traveling tomorrow. And so Pelham and myself will be running Welch's Game Juice, and her characters will be...
They're all going to die.
They'll suffer mightily for that.
Well, thanks to the cream cheese frosting, it did not stick to your face.
Yes, if it were fresh cream cheese frosting, that could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
But, we're pretty good.
All right.
And at this age, I know that this is what my arteries look like or are filled with after eating a red velvet cupcake. But
oh, it's red velvet even.
they're good.
So I need
Better not be
I
Kate
need
Welch
I
making
need
another
I need to make
play
a
at
new
me.
version of the alchemy jug that produces red velvet cupcakes.
Yeah. Or one of the Artificers, which we're going to be talking about eventually today.
Yes, because people have tuned in to hear about the Artificer
Not to
while we dream about red velvet cupcakes.
And witness of employee abuse and yeah, I don't know which Artificer specialist would produce cupcakes and baked goods.
So it is such a mighty, useful power. I would want to give it to the whole class, and not limit the glory of baked goods to just one subclass.
No,
this could be maybe an Artificer infusion where you create a magical easy bake oven. out of which magical baked goods are produced.
They would each have their own take. Like the archivist, he's or she clearly the recipe expert.
Yes. Yes.
And then the alchemist is clearly sort of the I don't know, the baker of it. There's like
the
a
artillerist. The artillerist would be the one who actually heats it all up.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
And then, the battlesmith, I don't just eats it. Can see.
Well, the battlesmith also, since the battlesmith is so helpful, would make sure the baked goods get distributed to people in need.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
The hound would deliver that. I'm shamed. I feel shamed now. I should put on my hat, for God's sakes. All right. I am a party unicorn.
I mean, yeah. Once you get used to it, you won't even notice the wire slowly killing you.
See, I'm attempting behind the head method. I always hated that as a kid.
It will just start carving slowly into the base of your skull. It's going to be fine.
Right, it slices off half my cranium.
I may, if my last two jokes seem unusually dark, it's because this Saturday we have a session of my home D&D game. My Gothic horror game is actually nearing its conclusion.
Is that good for the players or super bad for the players?
So here's what's wonderful. I don't know. Because I have put so much of the outcome into the player character's hands.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to turn out, which is exactly how I want it.
All right.
So I am setting up all sorts of horrors to face them at the end of this odyssey of horror. And we will find out what happens as they, I think, are going to reconstitute Count Strahd von Zarovich. Because his remains, they discovered, had been locked away and prevented from recombining, because anyone who's played Curse of Strahd, sorry, spoilers, Strahd always comes back.
It's been out a few years. I feel like it's okay.
Strahd always comes back, but there are some people who figured out how to prevent that, and for very complicated reasons, the group has realized that it is actually a cosmic good for him to be around and trapped inside the mists of Barovia. So they might actually help bring him back.
It kind of bears. Pelham is working. He's not. I'm working the board, which is terrifying. There's little screens that say, "Hey, put this one up for the studio with the names. Put this one up that says starting soon." There's one button on the bottom that just says "Do not use." But
don't do it.
I know. That's the one button. I'm dying to press it, and I have no idea what it even does. It just says don't.
Yeah, all DMs know if you put the do not push button in your adventure, someone is going to push it.
Of course. Yeah. I feel like you would almost want to put those buttons in your game, knowing that the players are. Players always take the left turn. If you want them to take the right turn, then you put the door that says "Do not."
Right, don't enter.
Enter here. Like, please, whatever you do, that chest is a mimic.
Yes.
Don't open it.
So someone, of course, will open it.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, we're going to talk through a bit more of the Artificer. We introduced the Archivist and the Battlesmith last time. You did have questions. I do have your questions. We're going to get to your questions. If you do have more questions, please do ask us. I wish it was the birthday button. I feel like I did press it, and Kate Welch came in and smashed me in the face. So I'm not going to press that again.
Yeah, don't do it.
If you do have more questions, please do put them in chat. Please do preface them with a question. We're going to be running 2 times the raffles as always. So please feel free to enter the raffle when those are open. It may include a donut. Those could
Magically going to get transported to you through Twitch.
I'm sure those will keep. Well, I post the prizes every week, and so if I can figure out a way to post a donut safely, that'll never send. That's like when my mom used to send me cookies at college, and it would arrive, like the bag would be self-contained. The cookies inside had disintegrated, crumbled in transit to just absolute powder and pebbles, but there's a thought.
Well, then you should just make cookie crumb milkshakes.
Oh,
I think I just gave you an idea for tonight.
You do, yeah, because I'm a smoothie milkshake kind of guy, so I will try that. So yeah, best birthday present that. Before we were so rudely interrupted.
So actually, from when I was a kid, I think one of my favorite presents wasn't a birthday present; it was a Christmas present.
Yeah,
and that was my mom got me this Fisher-Price castle.
Oh,
that included a little cave in it that this pink dragon lived in.
Yeah.
And the castle came with a carriage and a king and a queen and a prince and a princess.
I can kind of picture, maybe not the exact one, but I can picture what that would be like.
And I loved it as a kid. Yeah. Then my nieces and nephews loved it. And so I think my sister Melissa now has it so that her grandkids can play with it. So it's like it's moving through the generations of our family.
Which also tells you something about the biodegradability of plastic in the world.
Yes, it will last forever.
Right. Unfortunately, someday it'll end up in one of those big ocean current whirlpool islands. But yeah, I never got Dungeons and Dragons for birthday presents. Those were always my Christmas presents. I don't know if that was the release schedule, but yeah, it was always G.I. Joe action figures for birthday and D&D books for Christmas. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, have you opened your presents today, or is that tonight?
I did. I did open them today. Presents nowadays are a bit different.
It's like socks.
Yes, I hate shopping for clothes. So Shelley, but I need them. So Shelley buys me my office dress shirts every year because it's like, well, here's what he wears. Here's some shirts, and then there's always a couple of books on the Amazon gift list. So
that sounds great.
Neil Stevenson just came out with a new one that I was interested in, fall, and Spectrum, the art books, which Wizards of the Coast art appears in pretty much every year. I love those books and having those collections. And little Quinn, very sweet, gave me $1 from his piggy bank.
Oh, that is super sweet.
It is.
Because for a kid his age, like $1, man, that's a lot of money.
He's at the age where he knows it has meaning, but he doesn't actually buy anything with his money yet. So when he does, it'll be like, I'm not giving you any of this, old man. This is mine. But now it's like this is some sort of artifact,
right?
And I will share it with you.
Oh, so that's very sweet.
Yeah. Let's.
Do you want to hit me with some questions?
Let's jump to some questions. I know you've been patient in chat, so let's talk a few. We did have some general ones, but we'll do a little bit for the Artificer. Club 20 Natural asked about the new artificial specialists, the Archivist of the Battlesmith. Will those be implemented in D&D Beyond? Can we expect those there?
I believe so.
All right.
D&D Beyond, they have the subclasses, and I know they like putting them in there for you all to use. So I don't know what the date is, though. Unless, who knows, maybe they're already in there.
Look for them soon if they're not there now. But yes, the plan is, as always, for the material to appear in D&D Beyond. Max Zimenez asks, why did you remove Shield of Faith from the Artificer spell list?
Ooh, I commend you for noticing. That was one of the few snips that we made when we made some revisions to the spell list. We cut it because actually its inclusion was an accident, and it is I mean, it's right in the name. It is too divinely themed for the Artificer. I mean, it's really designed for classes like the Cleric and the Paladin, and was a sort of strange spell to have on the Artificer spell list, where suddenly they're using faith magic when that really is not their narrative shtick.
All right, moving along. I like this one. Shogun asks, would you be able to have a free hand when using a hand crossbow infused with the repeating shot, since it manifests its own ammo? So if you've got a hand crossbow,
right,
it's repeating the shot. Does that mean you've got a hand free now because you're not reloading your hand crossbow?
So for anyone who is wondering what the context is for this question, it really has to do with the ammunition property that many weapons have. So speaking of D&D Beyond, I just went to it, where we have
handy dandy,
and we have the ammunition property, and it tells you that drawing the ammunition from a quiver, case, or other container is part of the attack you make with a weapon with the ammunition property, and it says you need a free hand to load a one-handed weapon.
Okay.
Well, it stands to reason if you're not having to load ammunition, you do not need that free hand to load the non-existent ammunition. So the short answer is you do not need to keep your hand free to load ammunition that you don't have to load. In other words, if this thing makes it so that it's just generating ammo, do whatever you want with that other hand.
That's pretty juicy, as you'd say.
Yeah,
you've got
that is
the
juicy.
Crossbow that keeps firing. You can have a shield. You can have whatever you need in that.
Fire away. It is meant to be as good as it is.
Even Hank's magic bow needed two hands to fire his endless supply of arrows.
Yeah.
Right, local Trey. The Artificer specialists seem focused on healer, alchemist, skills, archivist, range spells, artillerist, and melee, battlesmith. Should we expect a ranged attack focused specialist such as a gunsmith? Is there more specialists that might be coming for the Artificer?
So, first off, I'd like to say the questioner is correct that each of the subclasses is meant to occupy its own narrative and game mechanical space. And some of what they put there is right on target. The alchemist definitely has more potent healing than the others. The archivist not only has to do with spells, but just sort of broad magical versatility. The artillerist is very good at area spells, but also range. And then the battlesmith, this is where I would sort of redirect how the battlesmith was described. Because if you look at the battlesmith, you'll see that their abilities are not melee focused. They are weapon focused. And it is interesting. I'm really glad this came up, because I do notice sometimes that when we do our design, unless we specifically remind you that ranged weapons are weapons, often when people read weapon in a piece of our design, their mind puts the word melee in, forgetting that weapon includes ranged weapons and melee weapons. For instance, the battlesmith right away gets proficiency with martial weapons. That includes some very fine ranged weapons. And a number of these other abilities that the battlesmith has do not require the use of a melee weapon. So really, if you want a artificer who is focused on ranged weapon attacks, you can do that with the battlesmith.
Right.
But if instead really the aesthetic you're going for is someone with a gun-like apparatus, my recommendation is to build that character using the artillerist. Because keep in mind that if you use the optional gun rules, all of the artillerist's magic can actually be launched from a gun. And because you get to decide what the arcane turrets look like, they could look like guns. And as I've mentioned before on this show, I am exploring in the next version of the artillerist, allowing you to actually have the turrets not be these large things, but instead be a handheld thing that would be gun-like in its operation. I notice occasionally looking at the feedback, there are people who are like, where's the gunsmith, where's the gunsmith? I've mentioned before that the gunsmith did not actually test well when we did the Artificer before. There are enough people who do not want guns made a sort of default part of D&D that we are not pursuing the gunsmith as a subclass. But I am making sure that those of you who want that aesthetic can still recreate it using the pieces that are in the Artificer. And you can count on, in the next version of the Artificer, it being even easier for you to have a gunsmith-like experience using the pieces that we provide.
It's yes, I can see there's a bit of a divide as far as the
because you're probably seeing, I don't have the chat in front of me, but you're probably seeing some people like no guns in D&D and other people saying I want guns in D&D.
Yes.
And honestly, in the feedback, it just turned out the people not wanting it, there are more of them than the people wanting it.
Fair enough. But again, as you mentioned, there's options to implement as needed with existing specialists.
And that is one of the beauties of how we have built the current edition, is you can often have your cake and eat it too. We have embraced, and this is true right in the core books, this idea of optional rules and variant rules. Follow your bliss at your table, take the pieces you want, and customize things so that they match the fantasy you're trying to build at your table.
Yes, I always enjoyed sort of the Kroll fantasy, where every once in a while there's a bad guy who has a strange laser gun, and it's just another strange enemy as opposed to just pure Arthurian, type of high fantasy.
Now, we did just get a whole bunch of additional feedback on the Archivist. Thank you to all of you who filled out the Artificer survey. And we have a member of our team, Ben Petrosor, going through all of that feedback with a fine-tooth comb. That is one of the invaluable things he does for our team. And this whole sort of guns or no guns question is definitely still on our mind. So we will see where the wind is currently blowing. Our priority is always to build things that feel right to the largest number of D&D fans, that feel like they are representing the D&D multiverse in as faithful a way as possible, while still also giving people the tools they want to customize their D&D experience.
I know we've been talking about the Artificer, but this one has sort of a related note. Club 20 Natural had asked, what is your approach to translating the personalities of an NPC into its stat block, transforming Mad Maggie's derangement into different mechanics? Kind of going into that, hey, we've got a story, we've got a flavor, translating that into mechanical effects.
That is a great question, and one that especially is relevant when thinking about a named NPC versus just a generic monster.
Right.
We always try to make sure that if a character has a game-relevant personality quirk, and they have a unique stat block, that we represent it somehow in that stat block. However, we don't like to go too far because one of the elements of liberty in D&D is that sense of being able to role play, when you're the DM, an NPC how you choose. And so we don't want to hard code too much personality into the stat block. Because we don't want to tie the DM's hands too much. So really we try to just sort of like nudge. Sometimes that's just reflected in the ability scores, and then the story information we provide with the stat block, which the story information often is actually a way for you to interpret the ability scores. You know, one character's high charisma might represent they are very appealing and friendly, whereas another character's high charisma might represent that they are malevolently beguiling. And that distinction sometimes doesn't have a special action tied to it. It's just something we say in the story text so that when you read that number, you have a narrative context for how you interpret it. Now, other times, if a character has a personality trait that bleeds into combat capability or an extraordinary non-combat ability, then we will certainly build that as some kind of trait in the stat block, a special action, innate spellcasting, that sort of thing. So when it comes to Mad Maggie herself, we would only build her quirkiness into her stat block if it in some way would affect her behavior in a concrete, sort of game quantifiable way. Or if she could use that quirkiness to somehow change other people's behavior. Now, a lot of the quirkiness that, say, people saw when I role-played her at D&D Live, that was just stuff I made up based on the story information that is in Descent into Avernus. And so a lot of that was just me as a DM having a ball, role-playing a character to the hilt.
Yes.
And that's often what I do as a DM, is I will read carefully, okay, how is this character described? And then often accentuate certain things. One example of this is Mad Maggie in Descent into Avernus is described as being fascinated by ancient artifacts related to Zariel, and that she has collected a number of these artifacts. Well, I decided to turn that into she specifically collects Zariel memorabilia, almost like, like Funko figures, right, and, T-shirts.
Trading cards.
Yes, that kind of thing, just because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And we, with our published adventures, will often give you little story seeds, and then the DM gets to decide which direction to push it in. You could have a DM who actually decides to play Mad Maggie as kind of pretty serious. Maybe her Zariel collection is this well-curated museum. Whereas I went in, again, a much more sort of tongue-in-cheek direction.
I now like the idea that in the world, Forgotten Realms or wherever, there's tinkers and whatnot, so maybe they are making their own action figures of famous paladins of the world.
Yep.
And, oh no, the Red Wizards are their enemies.
Yeah. I mean, all it takes is looking at some of the wacky magic items we have in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then remember that the multiverse has gnomes and other very inventive creators. It is not out of the question to imagine that things like action figures and whatnot exist, at least in some pocket of the D&D multiverse.
Oh yes, there's a little clockwork crafted figures all over the place. I'm sure. I look no further than the alchemy jug. Let's go back to the Artificer. King John asks, any plans for specialist-specific infusions? Also, will we ever see the Artificer base class gain the Thief's use magic item feature? It just seems to fit so well.
So the first question about subclass-specific infusions.
Yes.
So these would be infusions that only certain subclasses within the class could take. We considered it. It's not a path I'm that interested in us pursuing design-wise, unless the feedback shows that there's a lot of interest in it. One of the reasons why I'm not that keen on it is you end up then designing something for such a tiny subset, really. I mean, the Artificer is already going to be sort of a niche class, and then you're designing for something for a niche within the niche. And we explored this a little bit in the Warlock with subclass-specific invocations. They were fun to design, but even as I was doing design work on them, I thought, not a whole lot of Warlocks are going to use these versus the invocations that are just awesome, and they're awesome for all Warlocks. And plus, you're already picking from a large pool, so that you already have a lot of customization options available to you. There's not a lot of drive for us to give customization options in this big pool that only a few people can use. But again, I say all of that, but because again, we are so committed to playtest feedback,
Yes.
if the majority of people are like, give us some of this, then we will certainly explore it.
All right. Last time we did take a look at the Archivist and the Battlesmith. You did have some questions kind of going a bit further into those. So why don't we touch a little bit upon the Archivist first. Smartian asked, any thoughts on letting the Artillerist use intelligence for weapons as well?
We could if we push the Artillerist more in a weapon direction. Right now, the Artillerist relies on their spell casting. But if in revising the Artillerist we went in a weapon direction, that is certainly something we would explore. But it is likely they will continue to be spell focused. And as I mentioned in our last episode, Arcane Armament, especially now looking at this latest playtest feedback, is most likely going to just move into the Battlesmith and be a feature of that subclass.
This is a question, speaking of the Artificer pets. Is the wording of how Artificer pets work going to be expanded to all other pet classes spells? And I'm reading between the lines that maybe they're finding it useful or an expansion of current mechanics for pet classes and spells. Are the Artificer pets going to be, that language going to be more broadly interpreted throughout the game, or is it restricted to the Artificer?
It's restricted to the Artificer. One of the powers of D&D being an exception-based game is we can design something for a niche, and it just works there without a ripple effect into the rest of the game. You might be wondering, Jeremy, why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because it means anytime we release something new, you can rest assured that new thing isn't going to create ripple effects in the thing that you're already using. Say you're using an option from the player's handbook, and you're happy with that option, you're going to continue using that option. You don't need to worry, if the Artificer came out in a book, you don't have to worry about how the Artificer's functionality may or may not affect how your class works. Because the answer is the Artificer has no effect at all on how your class works.
I'm picturing Mark Ruffalo with the timelines in Endgame going, well, if we move this here.
Yeah.
All right, no, don't touch it.
And we have specifically designed the game so that those timelines do not affect each other.
Yes.
Because given all of the moving parts in our game, we don't want you, our fellow fans, to have to trouble yourselves, going through a book like Xanathar's Guide and worrying, oh my God, how does the wording of this new feature affect a feature in the player's handbook? Because we designed the game so that it does not affect it and will not affect it. The only way new tech might affect old tech is if playtest feedback guides us in the future toward doing either some kind of revision of a core book or providing alternatives to what's in a core book. And then we might incorporate in those alternatives or in that revision some of this newer tech. But the newer tech also does not make your older tech obsolete. You can keep playing what you have in the player's handbook. If you like it, keep liking it. As I so often say, follow your bliss.
Speaking of, TySQL asks, was there a reason the Xanathar's Guide's common magic items were not added to the list of replicate magic items? Was there a reason to focus on Player's Handbook items?
So all of our initial design for the Artificer focused on material just in the core books. That is always our focus because, as I've mentioned before, only the core books are core. I mean, it's right there in how we refer to them. Anything outside the core books is optional in 5th edition D&D. So even Xanathar's Guide to Everything, as much as so many people love that book and are using material from that book, that entire book is optional. It is not a core book.
Xanathar would disagree. He says you only need one book. One.
I would not trust what the Xanathar says about most things. And so whenever we build something new, our priority is that it primarily works with the core books, because we want you to be able to get the new thing and just get up and running with it, having it just click right in with what you have in the Player's Handbook. Now, as you saw, we did add in our most recent revision some Xanathar spells to the list and carefully marked them to make sure it was clear you don't need to have access to these spells to play an Artificer, but if you do have Xanathar's Guide, these spells are options for you. Now, we
Our
might...
lights went out, but...
yeah, it's because we don't have Pelham.
But I think we're all right. We got the studio lights going on still.
So when it comes to those common magic items, we could certainly explore adding them to the replicate magic item infusion in a future revision of the class. I just would want to make sure, as we have done, that it first works, replicate magic item, with the magic items in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Right. There you go. MySQL. I'm delighted by this question. Local tray. Can I use moving on to the Battlesmith? There were some questions that came in for that and for this week as well. I'm seeing them. But from last week, Local Tray asked, "Can I use the Iron Defender as a mount, or would I need to cast Enlarge Reduce to do so?"
So the mounted combat rules in the Player's Handbook tell you if a creature is an eligible mount, and so you just use those rules, take a look, see if the Iron Defender qualifies for you. For a mount to be eligible, there are some size requirements, both for the mount and for the rider. So just take a look in the mounted combat rules and see. There is nothing in the Iron Defender rules that say it cannot be used as a mount, but you'll have to look at the mountain combat rules to see if it can be used as one for your particular character.
Celador Mythica asks, would it be possible to have different stat blocks to choose from for the Iron Defender, i.e. a dancing sword?
So that would start getting a bit too complex. One of the goals for the Battlesmith is that it be the most straightforward of the 4 Artificer subclasses. And I would rather people focus on just customizing how their Iron Defender looks.
Right. Cosmetically, there's a lot of variety that can be interpreted by the player.
Exactly.
But mechanically...
yeah. Because they're other than right now... It stating or implying that the Iron Defender is a quadruped, really the sky is the limit on how you decide it looks. And its functionality, what it can do, will work with virtually any appearance.
Can we, Max Zimenez asks, can we expect, it's kind of similar to the pet question, I believe. Can we expect any of the design around the Iron Defender to be ported back to the Ranger Beastmaster?
Again, if people really love the Iron Defender, and preview, I can tell you, having looked at the playtest feedback, people actually love the Iron Defender.
Of course, it has a dog.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want a doggy?
Again, there is a chance that if we were to revise what's in the Player's Handbook, or more likely provide alternative class features, something I've talked about before on this show, the work that we would do on those alternative features would certainly be informed by design done on the Artificer, as well as a deep dive into the feedback you all have given us.
Random question being asked about what kind of donuts these are.
There's a rainbow sprinkle one. There is an old-fashioned. There is a cinnamon cake donut. There is another non-glazed old-fashioned, and there is a chocolate one.
And I think, not to give a plug, but in the Seattle area, we've got a fantastic donut chain called Top Pot. Apparently, the owners purchased did you ever hear this story? The first one opened up in Capitol Hill, right around where I used to live, which was very dangerous. The owners purchased like an old diner sign.
I remember that place where you live.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But the old diner sign said Top Spot. And when they were bringing it back into town, the S fell off the back of the truck. And so they just kept it as Top Pot Donuts.
How funny.
And yes, and it's a very good donut chain. We have a few good. We have legendary donuts. We've got Top Pot donuts. We've got some great donut companies.
Mighty O donuts.
I haven't had a Mighty O donut in a long time.
Yeah.
But they're good. So, do you have a favorite flavor of donut?
Old fashions,
Ah, okay.
which is also my favorite drink.
See, I have the taste of a 5-year-old, so it's as much sugar as possible. For me, it's a Boston cream and a White Russian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sugar.
It's funny how both our drink and our donut, in both cases, they match.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So yeah, there you go. They are delicious donuts, except for the one cupcake that probably had a rock embedded in the middle. Kate's trying to take me out.
Trying to shatter your teeth.
Yeah, right. If my teeth don't dissolve from the sugar, we'll just knock them out. We've got a few general questions. I'll grab some of the questions from chat about the Artificer in a moment here, but just to gather my train of thought, Herkrabi asks, the player's handbook errata says, the Sentinel, this is on page 169, the text within 5 feet of you has been removed from the second benefit. Is the same intended to be done with Cavalier's range restriction for many of its abilities?
No.
Okay.
This is, again, D&D is an exceptions-based game. Each thing is designed to work within itself. A change that we make for the Sentinel feat is just for the Sentinel feat, and has, if we had intended to change the Cavalier in a similar way, we would do so. But in that case, the change we were making there was specific to that feat.
Okay.
That was not a sort of policy change. You will know if there's some broad sort of policy change if I were to introduce errata to an actual core rule. But you will notice that the errata that we have released tends to be about specific things in the game and not about general rules.
Same questioner, Herkrabi, asks, you stated.
Wow.
I don't know. you gotta figure out.
You've
what
had a
the
lot of
inflection
sugar
is
today.
here. I have, and only sugar. No lunch, just sugar. You stated during Sage Advice that bonus actions are additional actions. Does this mean if I have an extra attack and decide to dual wield, using my bonus action for attacking 2, will I be able to have 4 attacks instead of 3 attacks, as I have been assuming?
So the extra attack feature
Yes.
does give you an extra attack, and depending on your class and your level, it might eventually give you 2 extra attacks. And that is a feature that enhances the attack action itself. If you are using the 2-weapon fighting rule in the combat chapter of the player's handbook, which lets you get an extra attack using a bonus action, that bonus action attack does indeed stack on top of the attacks you're getting from extra attack. So go to town.
I like it. If you eat a donut in the morning, but it's your birthday, you get to eat an extra donut. It's just the way that it works sometimes.
Something I think I've brought up in the Sage Advice podcast with Greg Tito that I know sometimes confuses people is the limitations within the two-weapon fighting bonus action, having to do with a light weapon, etc., have no relevance for the attacks that you're making with your attack action. And so you can, for instance, if you have the extra attack feature, you could make, let's say you have 2 attacks, you could make each of those attacks with a different weapon, and that instance of dual wielding is not affected in any way by the two-weapon fighting rule. The two-weapon fighting rule applies only to the bonus action that it provides.
Would I be able to dual wield 2 hand crossbows infused with repeating shot and just go full Matrix?
Now, did you ask that question?
Yes.
So now you're sneaking questions in.
I just like the idea of, I'm just loving the repeating shot hand crossbow now. I find that, and I'm going to mount it on my shoulder like Predator.
Nice. It is a light weapon. And the two-weapon fighting rule requires that they both be light weapons.
So you could do it.
So go to town, my friend.
How about a real question from Slothino? Would it be possible to allow casting the same infusion twice, but on different objects?
No.
Okay.
Not at least. Did you like how I paused? Yeah. Not at least, given our current design.
Okay.
And part of that, part of the reason for that is we want to encourage diversification, because otherwise, let's see. I want to make sure I'm not going to misspeak, so I'm going to the infuse item feature. Yeah. So I want to make sure I'm talking about the current version.
Sure.
We currently require that each infusion can be used only one at a time, because again, we want to diversify. We want to encourage you to actually experience the full breadth of the Artificer's versatility. Otherwise, it would be very, very tempting to just take the enhanced weapon or the enhanced defense, and it's just +1, +1, +1, the end. Now, if the playtest feedback tells us people want that experience, and enough people want that experience, and if we check and the math of the game can handle that okay, then fine. Mm-hmm. We will, however, not lift the restriction about piling multiple infusions on the same item. That we will not allow, because that is begging for a combination that we did not foresee,
sure.
And also it's begging for potential slowdown. Because as people know, I often come back to one of our priorities in our design is, whenever possible, to make sure rules options are helping the game move forward in exciting ways and not slow it down.
Sounds fair enough. We've got about 10 minutes here, so I've got, I think, just a couple of questions from the past and from the chat. It looked like you had an interjection.
I realized last time we said we would talk about the new infusions about the tweak to the multi-classing rules, and we haven't done that yet.
Let's do that then. We'll make sure we carve out some time now. And again, as always, we are archiving your questions in chat. If we don't get to them live this week, we do keep them all. We do try to get to as many as possible. So where should we begin? The infusions?
Let's talk about the infusions, because they'll go fast.
Yes.
So we already answered a question about repeating shot. This was here. We added it to address the concern some people had after we released the last batch of infusions about artificers using crossbows and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we wanted them to be great if they so chose. Great at using crossbows, particularly because that was actually something that some artificers focused on back in 3rd edition. Mm-hmm. And so we created this infusion that makes it very easy to fire away, because it not only, of course, gives you a damage and an accuracy boost, but it also ignores the loading property if the weapon you're using has it, and It also makes it so the weapon does not require ammunition. So yeah, it is a little reminiscent of Hank's crossbow in the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
I thought that was the greatest magic weapon when I was a kid.
Oh God, it was awesome. But I also want to point something else out, because again, sometimes our minds put in words into text, words that are not actually there. Repeating shot doesn't just work with crossbows. It works with any simple or martial weapon with the ammunition property. So if you want a bow like Hank, you can have it using repeating shot.
Oh, I would have loved that as a kid.
Well, you don't have to go back in time.
I know. Yes,
You can make an Artificer now and be Hank.
No, but I plan to. I've been waiting for the other subclasses to drop so I can do just that. So that's with the infusions.
Oh, we also had the repulsion shield, which is just a fun blast people back defensive ability. And we also added in an enhanced wand because we realized, given the emphasis on wand use, particularly by the artillerist, we wanted to give artificers the ability to enhance their wands. Now, something I saw people asking some questions about after we released this new version of the class was the very subtle tweak that we made to the multi-classing rule for the Artificer. And so what we did is, if you go to the very, very end of the classes write-up, it's on the very last page.
Page 14, the
optional rule on multi-classing. And it's down in the section on spell slots. You'll see it says add half your levels rounded up in the Artificer class to the appropriate levels from other classes to determine your available spell slots. For those of you who've never multi-classed before, what this mumbo jumbo is about is that if you have multiple spellcasting classes, when you multi-class, you add levels together in those classes to figure out how many spell slots you get, and the multi-classing rules basically tell you how to figure that out. The key is, in those rules, there are some classes, the Paladin and the Ranger in particular, where your levels in those classes are halved, just as the Artificers are, but they are rounded down. And in our first version of the Artificer, we just repeated that rule of Artificer levels being rounded down. I realized this was one of those things, like right as it went out onto the web, and I had kind of one of those, trying to grab it to pull it back. I realized it should be rounded up, and also a number of you astutely pointed this out online, that it should be rounded up. Because unlike the Paladin and the Ranger, the Artificer begins with spellcasting ability at first level. Those classes do not. And so the Artificer is very intentionally in its own sort of space among the classes. I've seen some people ponder on Reddit and elsewhere, is it a design mistake that the Artificer sort of breaks the mold when it comes to what people refer to as half-casters? Rangers and Paladins are called half-casters because their spellcasting progression is it's like the progression of a cleric or a wizard or a druid or a bard, throttled almost in half. The Artificer is unusual because the Artificer is, sort of like a Ranger or a Paladin, but with a twist. And that is very intentional. So much of the Artificer's design is meant to be like something else, but with a twist. And that is something you and I talked a bit about, that this class is all about this very special versatility. And this is also a great example of exceptions-based design. I've seen people pondering, well, if we do this having Artificer levels but rounding up rule here, does that necessitate changing the rule for the Paladin and the Ranger? The answer is no, because again, with exceptions-based design, we can say this is how the Artificer works. It has no effect on how any other class works.
All right, so we've gotten through this round of the Artificer. It's taken a couple of weeks, but I'm again appreciative that we can kind of go through the unearthed arcana material in some depth. We do have a couple of minutes left here, so I was going to grab maybe one more question to see if we can get through with the Artificer. Again, thanks everyone for sending in your questions. It's much appreciated. We do try and get through as many as possible. Where did we go with the question? It was right. Alan Tucker asked, the mending spell in the Artificer's hands, is it intended to scale as other cantrips do with level for the healing of the homunculi?
Not currently, but I am, as I do some revisions to the class, going to explore maybe tweaking how mending works, because right now we thought it was fun to give mending this additional use, but one of the issues with mending is it has a slow cast time, it doesn't scale, so there's a good chance we might actually ditch mending entirely as a delivery device for that healing. Also, I can't guarantee the homunculus will still be in the alchemist the next time, based on the feedback I've seen, but there is a good chance there will be a homunculus option built into the infusion system, available to all artificers who want it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I can say, for those of you curious, the overall feedback on the Artificer class has been very positive. Overall satisfaction for the class as a whole is quite high. And people also are really digging a number of the infusions, really digging some of the subclass options, and we definitely have a pretty clear path forward on what we need to tweak to bring satisfaction with the class overall up, as high as we can get it before the class potentially becomes part of a future release.
Well, I'm excited for that. I love the class. This is right in my wheelhouse of interest as far as being a useful tinker for the party. I think is phenomenal. It's things that normally might, how to phrase this, might take place off screen. The mechanics allow it to take place on screen in a useful way to the party, which and companions and Iron Defenders are just awesome. So how could you go wrong? And
as I said, people in the playtest feedback, they love the Battlesmith and they love that Iron Defender.
Yeah. I like the homunculi, just because I think he's, it's a cool entity to have for your character.
Yeah, even if it doesn't stay inside the Alchemist, I will make sure that option stays inside the class, if only for you, Bart, because it's your birthday.
Oh, there you go. I don't think I've ever played a spellcaster that hasn't taken the Find Familiar spell for the same reason. Just having that little companion, I think, is a great bit of flavor as a player, and then the Dungeon Master can always, there's two ways to threaten you, your character and your character's companion. And woe to anyone that messes with a character's companion.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting close to 2 o'clock, so I did want to say, first of all, thank you for being a good sport. We managed to wear these ridiculous hats for the entirety of the hour. I was impressed. That,
I don't think I'm bleeding.
Little do you know, you passed out 20 minutes ago. I've been trying to revive you. But thanks everyone as well. I do appreciate the birthday wishes. I've been seeing them come in through chat. Thank you so much. It is nice. It's nice to come to work and be able to share it with everyone. So thanks. Thanks as always to our followers and subscribers, and of course to our moderators as well. We did have 2 raffles going on today, so please do contact the moderators after the fact to get your contact information in for the winners. We probably will not actually be able to send you a donut, but we will send you, I don't know, something in the shape of a donut, a coupon for a donut, but you have to redeem it in person here at Wizards of the Coast somehow. So. Yeah,
for a petrified donut.
Yes.
Because if they stay around long enough in the office.
Well, it's like the wedding cake in the freezer you're supposed to eat after a year.
And then shatter your teeth.
Well, it's like, well, this is awful. This was a horrible tradition. Nobody should ever do this.
Just eat it on your wedding day and enjoy it.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will tune out here. And, oh, yes, I will, not Halfwing says, I will press the button. Not the one that says do not use. I'm going to hit the one that says thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.